In this video, we're going to explore how to set up a new document in Adobe Photoshop and some of the options available to us during this process. Firstly, open up Photoshop and then go ahead to select File and New. The new document window will appear, and we'll start by giving our document a suitable name. There are many preset sizing options available to us, and these are categorized over here based upon the common intentions of Photoshop users. These preset options, for example, are for film and video, as well as print. I'll go ahead and select Print and A3. On the right hand side, you'll notice that there are options to override the presets. For example, you can input exact width and length dimensions for a new document, as well as the orientation, such as portrait and landscape. We won't worry about artboards in this instance. To set the resolution, there are two options to stick to in most scenarios. These are 72 ppi, or pixels per inch, which is best for projects that will eventually become web uploads, things like banners, images for articles, thumbnails, etc. The other option, 300 ppi, is best for printing or keeping offline, and thus keeping the option of printing open for later. It's not the case though that larger resolutions are always better, so stick to these standards unless requested otherwise. You should note though that converting a 300 ppi image to 72 ppi is certainly possible, but scaling up from 72 ppi to 300 ppi can result in a lower quality image, and so this is discouraged. To set the color mode when working on color images, RGB, or red, green and blue, should be selected, and this is always good for keeping images in a digital format on the computer or using online. Whereas CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow and key, this should be used if you intend to print your color image. If you're working with black and white imagery, grayscale should be selected if you intend to print at some point. Attempting to print a black and white image in CMYK mode later may result in a bluish appearance, as the printer will attempt to use color ink to print a black ink effect. Color mode can be changed later, although you risk colors not staying as you intended. Keep this to 8-bit unless requested otherwise. Shortly, Photoshop will produce your document based upon the settings you've selected. In this window, Photoshop wants to know whether you would like the background to be white, black, or another color of your choosing, and you can select that here. I'm going to go ahead and select white for my example. Now in the advanced section, we have the option to manage the color profile. This will likely be set out in the requirements of your project. Generally, I'd keep this to the option Working RGB, sRGB, unless you're requested otherwise. It should be noted that changing this at a later stage can cause issues with your colors as well. In grayscale color mode, I would generally work with a color profile set to working gray, dot gain 20%. For the pixel aspect ratio, square pixels are fine generally for photographs that will be kept and viewed on the computer or on the internet, and they're also suitable for creating things like video titles, for example. However, if you're working with an older camera, so one perhaps that's not HD, then you may wish to select an option that aligns better with the settings of your camera. Now that we've set up all the settings for our new Photoshop document, we can go ahead and click the Create button. We now have our document in front of us and it's ready to work on, so we're going to go and save this document now in an editable format so that we can return to it later. So let's select File, Save As, and in this window we can set the name of our document. Be careful not to delete or write over the .psd file extension, as this part of the name is needed to open our file with Adobe Photoshop. Click the little drop down arrow to the right of your file name, and you'll see that this expands the window and allows us to select where to save. Finally, keep the format option to Photoshop, and this will create the .psd or Photoshop document file, and that will allow us to open, save, and close the file repeatedly to continue working on it as much as we desire. Now we can click Save, and that's everything for this video. In the upcoming videos, we'll begin exploring the many photo editing tools that Photoshop makes available to us.